Coogs House, the Houston Cougars continue to lose to the transfer portal, but this time we're not even really sure what we lost.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, I still can't get over that. Cool. The intro is cool now. Thanks, Brian, to that. Shout out to Brian for that. Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast on your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. If you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us your favorite cut of beef, red meat. What's your favorite thing you get? I got a steakhouse or a brisket, but what favorite cut? Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. More on that in a second. We got a show today with some interesting news and updates. On the positive side, I do want to talk some about Ryan Elvin and the basketball program. A positive news update is coming at the end of the show, folks. Third segment, I promise. I do need to talk some about a handful of players that are entering the transfer portal. Coogs and frankly a former Coug that all kind of sparked interest. People said, when they saw them enter. But we got to do a whole segment on the biggest name leaving the program for the transfer portal today, and that is officially Mikal Harrison-Pilot joining others, Sam Brown included, in going to the transfer portal. I should point out, and I only point this out from a technicality perspective, that I guess technically in the transfer portal does not mean you have to leave. If the program you're leaving to go into the portal will have you back, you can obviously always come right back. I don't know that that's the case with any of these guys. Mikal Harrison-Pilot hurts in a lot of ways because of all of the potential that there was there that we never really got to see play out. He's, in terms of composite recruit rankings, the fourth best football player to ever be recruited and come to the University of Houston. And it's like splitting hairs between he and number one is Ed Oliver, right? We are not talking about a big gap from him being the best guy to ever come through. He committed to Houston over TCU on the eve of their national championship appearance. Texas as a receiver after they'd already signed a Manning kid. Oklahoma, Cal. He chose Houston before kickoff the U.S. Army All-American game, did the whole hat picking and da-da-da-da-da, in large part because his father played linebacker at Houston. His stepmother was cheerleader too. He had 50 offers, over 50 offers, played college football, really could have gone anywhere he wanted and chose Houston. And it felt like when he chose Houston in December of 2022, wait a second, folks, this is a key sign of things going a very specific, positive direction, right? Houston's joining the Big 12. These kinds of kids. I mean, Mikal is from Temple, Texas, went to Temple High School where he played every position on the field, quarterback, running back, receiver, safety. He did everything, right? Letchways was listed as an athlete. And I understand he's from Temple, but generally speaking, guys like him are all over Houston, all over the greater Houston area, and all over Texas as far as high-end athletes. And getting a guy like Mikal Harrison-Pilot felt like potential to go in and get more of those guys in the future. This works out. Look at what you can do when you come here, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, it looked like a perk of going to the Big 12, right? It looked like, going to the Big 12 means that we're going to be on a stage that attracts this kind of talent. And Harrison-Pilot showed up. He played, I think 14 snaps was the number I saw in his freshman season. Ultimately is officially declared a redshirt year for him, which made a lot of sense. He was reportedly injured at the end of camp right as the year started. He's a freshman. The game's bigger, fast, strong. He's got to find a new position because he's kind of focused on one position. Not uncommon for freshmen to redshirt. Even the super, super talented ones in football. College football from high school football is such a gigantic jump for the vast majority of programs. It's not about the kids, but the programs come from, right? That being said, all this potential just felt like it was oozing there. And when the coaching change happened, I frankly thought it was a nice sign of loyalty that he was not leaving, right? I thought it was worth noting that he was staying put even after Holgerson left. He was a Holgerson recruited guy, receiver, etc. He stayed through spring ball, stayed through the spring game. And I will say, in checking my notes through the spring game, I watched it a few times over on ESPN Plus. I love that it's on ESPN Plus to be able to review like that. He was probably underutilized. He was not used a whole lot. He's on the field plenty, a lot of time with the twos, frankly. And, I guess he was with the twos with Sam Brown and transporting. Like, okay, well, he can bump into the ones pretty quickly, but just not used a whole lot. And I think that's important to keep in mind here because we're all disappointed because the potential of Mikal in Houston was so high, and we're not going to get to see it. Someone else will. And I've said this with each guy that's entered the transfer portal. I'm the guy that wishes people the best on the way out. And as long as you don't play Houston, go win a bunch of games, right? That's the main thing. I say all that to say, I think that a lot of people are tying this must be NIL and making NIL be this giant boogeyman because it's new and it came around roughly the same time as this transfer portal explosion, and that suddenly we're losing athletes, legacy athletes like Harrison Pilot or Houston-born hometown kids to the transfer portal. And the only answer must be NIL because it's where we're lacking or we're behind other programs in terms of our football NIL support. I mean, Ohio State's doing 34 million. SEC schools are regularly putting up 35, 40 million in NIL money per year. And while it's not a sustainable system long term, I think college football will change at some point. It's Houston's not in the $30 million range. It's just not. They got other things going on, right? And I think that's an easy boogeyman to make out of this. I also think it's worth pointing out, though, with any transfer, there's almost never just one thing. It's never just the NIL. It's never just the coaching situation. It's never just the snaps. It's never just it's always got pieces of all of it, right? With Harrison Pilot, I would imagine, and I have not talked to him about this. Mikal, if you want to talk about it, I'd love to talk to you about it. I have not talked to him about this. I'd imagine he stayed through the coaching change to kind of see it out. Fritz has good references and a good resume. People love playing for him when they played for him. Again, MHP is a great athlete. Why couldn't they make it work, right? He's a versatile athlete, frankly, played a lot of positions, right? Why not make it work? And then they do spring, trying to figure things out. It's obviously a little bit wonky because Donovan's not there. And they go to the spring game. And as I was hinting at, I thought would happen, Houston's going to run the ball a lot. It became very apparent then, and obviously Donovan not being there shifted that even more so, exaggerated it some. But Houston's going to run the ball a lot. And I think we saw Sam Brown on Monday, and now we're seeing Mikal Harrison-Pilot on Wednesday. Guys are entering the portal because on top of whatever other factors you may have had here, may have had there, etc., they're like, wait a second, if we're going to throw the ball 27, 28 times a game, I'm not going to get 8 targets. We can't do 8 targets a receiver. This receiver room is too deep and too talented. And so the guys that know they will have options, who are coincidentally the best guys, are in the portal because they can go find somewhere they can get 10 targets a game, right? And I almost can't fault that if that's, your thing. I think it's also pointing out that the rebuild will take time in Houston. And so like with a Sam Brown who has a lot less time in college left, I kind of get it. Harrison Pilot had 4 years, so it's probably not one of his key things, but maybe he wants to, I could see winning immediately being important too. I think there's a lot of different factors here. And I want to stress that like these guys were a part of the Houston program for a while. I would stress you should probably also continue to wish them the best, unless they go to a program that we're playing against or whatever that weekend. I would hope you continue to wish them the best in the same way, just because that don't need to make mountain on a molehills on some of this kind of stuff. And then B, NIL is an issue. NIL is an issue in the sense that like we're a little bit farther behind some of our competitors athletically, right? I would point out we're like farther ahead of some schools that were in the group of 5 a year ago, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like it's being made out to be this gigantic boogeyman, though, that it's the problem. And it's flawed, it's imperfect, but there are other things at play here, and the transfer portal and the NIL are two completely separate things. And I don't think it's fair to make judgments on kids' characters, like calling them greedy, selfish, etc., for making a decision on where they're going to attend school and play football. I think, again, there's a lot of different factors here, and I feel the same way about MHP. I think that, he realistically looked around and was like, this might not be the best situation for me anymore. And it's certainly not the same situation it was when I signed up to come here, a little over a year ago. I wish he'd stayed. I wish he stuck it out, but I get it. And we'll talk more in a second about a number of other guys that also will be moving off the program. And I don't mean to say that impact won't be felt like Mikal Harrison-Pilot, but it will be a little bit different. We'll get into more of each of them in a moment. But NIL is all about finance and taking care of money and allocating money. And if you'd like to allocate and take care of your finances and your money, I got to say, it would be great if you could see all of your investments and retirement assets in one place. With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Let's get straight to the point. If you want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, with Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They're the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Security Link your brokerage accounts for a unified view, verified, of your wealth, including 401k and other investments, a comprehensive perspective that sets apart great investors. And it's how Yahoo Finance ensures that you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor. That's yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. All right, I mentioned that Mikal Harrison-Pilot was not the only Houston Cougar to enter the portal. And frankly, while I do think the potential football player he is sets him apart in some ways, there was another very talented former Cougar into the portal. He was not on the Houston Cougar football roster last fall, although he was last spring, and everyone took notice, so I didn't want to go too far without mentioning him. Alton McCaskill, who was at Houston and was the American Athletic Conference Rookie of the Year, Conroe Oak Ridge High School, looked like the future face of the program in 2021. Spent 2022 hurt, rehabbing a knee injured in the spring of 22. And then, after participating to the extent he could, coming off of an injury in spring of 2023, Alton surprised everyone, Holgorsen included, by entering the transfer portal and very quickly committing to the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Deion Prime Sanders. Frankly, it was kind of an ugly split. A handful of guys drew lines in the sand, at least metaphorically, it looked like on social media. And frankly, the ultimate thing that came out of this for the Houston Cougars was, before Parker Jenkins even set foot on campus, he became one of my favorite guys. Jenkins said at some tweet, was like, "Hey guys, I'm right here. We're gonna be okay." They would just like this, like, "Hey, we're all here." He was very much reassuring that, "Hey, I got the future of this thing," and I think he's right. But everyone, I think, in Houston Cougar will notice when Alton signed up for the transfer portal another time, mostly because I think there's some ickiness about it, and I understand where it comes from. People are upset that he left the program a year ago. It would have been really nice to have a running back like that to play with Parker Jenkins as you enter the Big 12 and so on and so forth. And he's really, really good at football. But a lot of people, I think, are feeling vindicated that the Colorado thing didn't work out, right? And, like I said, when we're talking about Mikal Harrison-Pilot or Sam Brown earlier this week or Lucas Collier this week or whomever, I'm not one to wish down or bad on people. It sounds like Colorado didn't work out for Alton, and my first thought was like, dang, man, like, you left all this for that and it didn't work out. Like, that sucks. Like, you hope it gets better for the kid because he did leave behind, I think, a community of people that really fell in love with him as a football player and kid in Houston. I don't know where he'll end up next. I don't mean to bring him up on this show for any reason other than he's a former Cougar. There's no like insight or anything there as far as, would he ever come back or whatever. I wish things were working out better for him. It sucks. He's a really good football player. And frankly, was a fun person to cheer on Saturdays for the year he played for Houston. As far as more recent former Cougs, as in like they played in the 2023 season for Houston, linebacker Traylon Payne had a healthier and better 2022 than 2023, but he he made me eat my words this season, so I got to shout out some credit there. I did previews for the season, and I talked a little bit about what I thought about his position group, and I didn't really mention a whole lot about Traylon before the linebacker group, and people were calling me out because like, oh, you're da-da-da, and I was like, I don't know, man. I think we're doing okay with the so-and-so and so-and-so, and I thought McCutcheon would play more, whatever, LaTravion McCutcheon. Anyway, without digressing too far, from the opening game when Traylon Payne made a huge pick, I was very much proven wrong. Right? Like, okay, Parker missed that one. I tell you when I get him right, I got that one wrong. I got it so wrong, apparently, that he thinks he can go find a better opportunity than what Houston's going to look like this fall in the transfer portal. Interesting to see where that goes. Logan Compton into the transfer portal as well. Compton was a high school class 2022 kid. Hadn't really gotten to see him outside of special teams kind of stuff a whole lot yet, playing tight end. Now, I will say tight end's a hard position to adjust to from the high school to college level, and so it's not uncommon for a really great tight end to not play a lot as a freshman or a redshirt freshman. I think we're probably going to get to see a lot of growth at him, especially in a multi-tight end set and offense like we got coming in. But I wonder if he thinks he's worthy of starting, and we saw that Matt Burns and Malik Carr are going to be the two guys that are getting the reps in 12 personnel sets. Logan Compton, when he graduated high school in 2022, was one of the best tight ends in the country. Again, Tomball, Texas, felt natural for him to be at home. We'll see where he ends up, but he is in the portal as well. And Eddie Henry is also a 6'2 tight end. He has one catch in 2 years. Not quite the same caliber prospect, but another tight end in the portal. I see all of that. Traylon, Logan, Henry. And I tell you again, and I reiterate, this is college football in 2024. If you're not on the first string or a young guy on the second string that's going to get some playing time, it's going to be really tempting to dip your toes in that portal and hear what other people think you can play. And by putting your toes in, by jumping into the portal, that's the way that you can officially, legally, formally, etc., hear the other programs out. I'm not going to judge kids that do that. Obviously, they get 4 years of college eligibility spread out across however many it is now. The COVID thing's gone for people that entered after what did it right. Regardless, I get trying to make sure you're maximizing your time as a college athlete. And I get the temptation to make sure of that. As I said on yesterday's episode, I've got horror stories. One of a kid I played in high school with, one of a kid I coached past tense, that got to a college program, a position coach changed, and suddenly they were never going to see the field, right? One was the court of the field, right? And like, that's a very real concern. So I get why kids are trying to make sure they don't get stuck in those situations. But man, I don't mean to go back to Alton, but like, the grass ain't always greener. I know Houston's not a very green city. It's very sprawling and metropolitan, and it's got skyscrapers downtown, and so the grass is not always greener out there. And I really think this program and coach staff are headed in the right direction. I know a lot of people are looking at the amount of kids jumping in the transfer portal as a gigantic negative. I don't know of a college football program in the country. I mean, Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State all of them included, right? The USCs, all these places included, are seeing kids jump in the transfer. I mean, heck, Houston got Mekhi Muse from Georgia, right? Like, kids are jumping in the portal and experimenting and seeing what happens, right? Whether they're young and want a place to go play right away, or they're older and feel like they're never, they hadn't built that bond, or they don't have a lot of time left. They got to find somewhere to like make sure they showcase themselves. Guys are using this thing frequently, regularly, and in droves. I spoke with a couple of recruiting people more broadly about college football last week, just shooting the breeze and messages or whatever. That's my dog. And they were both in agreement that you're looking at, in the landscape of college football, thousands of kids, not hundreds, thousands of kids being in the transfer portal at this window, or between this window and the January window, I should say, with the agreement that they made. And Houston's not any different than anyone else in all that. And it doesn't mean it's not an indictment on Fritz. It's not an indictment. I mean, everyone is seeing it happen, right? Kirby Smart is seeing his guys dabble in, like, can I go get a little more money at Florida State? Can I go from being the third option at wide receiver to the first option wide receiver? Like, people are experimenting with this transfer portal thing. And you can talk about it being good, bad, ugly, something we got to change. But for the time being, it is college football. And this is an unfortunate norm and reality for all programs. Now, I want to talk some about a program on campus that's trending in a different direction and kind of end on a high note, because something I thought it was really, really cool to see, and I really like the way that it happened for the men's basketball program. But first, I mentioned that I teach and coach, and that I have kids I've coached that have gone on to play at the high levels of college, D1 sports and things like that. Some Power 5 kids even got kind of lucky. One thing that I hope I imparted on all of them is that I am really, really competitive. My wife and I play games. I hate losing. I try whatever rules I got to bend. I got to win. Now, I have that competitive side. I'm sure you do too. That's what draws a lot of people to sports. And as a competitive person myself, I'm a gigantic fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard about it because over 150 million people have downloaded this app. It's a great twist on Monopoly. We play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, build up amazing cities, and it brings you money. But the best part is you can play with your friends. You can charge them rent on economic properties, just like a Monopoly. You can also heist and seize their vaults of riches and take it all for yourself. You have leaderboards that kind of show you up to the date, up to minute, up to second, real time, who is in the lead in your various Monopoly games and who is the Monopoly tycoon. And if you're trying to be a little bit less competitive, maybe being a little more mentally healthy than I am, it's not just for people with that crazy competitive side. You can also team up with your friends, people all around the world in time tournaments. Get in the game and join with your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play Store. All right, so I said that I want to end on a high note here, and that's the basketball program. And the basketball program the men's basketball program announced on Wednesday that Ryan Elvin announced on Wednesday with the help of the basketball program, he will be returning to the Houston Cougars in a polo shirt with a clipboard. Ryan Elvin will be joining the program back as a grad assistant on Kelvin Sampson's staff after a great and fan favorite type of 4 years. Obviously, the iconic moment around the 32 game against A&M where he came in and made a free throw right off the bench in overtime to ice the game. Great legacy, and the kind of guy you're always going to talk to your if you're a soon-to-be parent, you talk to your kids, your friends, but remember that time Ryan Elvin came in and made a free throw. He will be tied to this program for a long, 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 long time. But I think the cool thing here for me is Kelvin Sampson said it before that he would hire Ryan, and Ryan's going to be a grad assistant. But this gets Ryan very quickly, assuming he wants to continue his coaching thing well beyond his graduate degree, into a coaching tree that is fairly vertical. It's fairly vertical in the sense that guys don't just leave it. Kelvin Sampson has said multiple times, I've heard him speak about his staff, that he hires his guys because he said it I don't remember exactly word for word, but if he's not gonna, who else will, right? As you look up and down his staff, Sampson's staff is filled with guys that had a connection with him well before Houston, with the exception of like one or two. And I want to go through it quickly because this is now like Ryan is joining this group. Obviously, the assistant coaches officially are Kellen, Quanis, and KC. Now, that's coach's son, who also played for him. Quanis is point guard from a Final Four team. And frankly, then you get to Casey Beard. Like, what's Casey's connection? Casey came in as a video guy in 2014 when Kelvin Sampson showed up. He spent a decade working his way chair by chair up the ladder to sit next to Kelvin Sampson at these games as an assistant coach. For what it's worth, you're like, okay, but like, how do you get the video coordinator seat, Parker? Like, what happened there? He got that video coordinator job because he was the video coordinator for the Canadian national team the same time they had Kelvin Sampson as an assistant coach on staff. They met back in Canada playing international basketball, and he brought him over as a video guy and has watched Casey work his way up. Similarly, on the support staff is guys that coach but have a little bit different roles. There's semantics there with the NCAA. Hollis headlines that group. Hollis recently signed with an agent, I think, so we'll see. I think he's here for the immediate future. I didn't read too much into that, but Hollis obviously was the best player at Oklahoma on that Final Four run under Coach Sampson. Easy to see the connection there. Some of the other connections you don't see, Bobby Champagne was an assistant, kind of worked his way up to be an assistant in Oklahoma in those same kind of years. Wanted to coach as a head high school coach in Alabama, a couple different high schools across the state of Alabama, and got asked to come back to coach with Sampson in 2021. But they had that connection back to the early Oklahoma days, right? Matthew McDonald, the current video coordinator, has been with the program in some role, form, or fashion since he was a student manager back in 2017, right? And now he's just that video coordinator. It took him that long, having worked with no one else, just to go from student manager to video coordinator, right? Like, and it's a crazy, upward trajectory, right, for a young guy involved in coaching it. But also, that's how much Kelvin has to know his guys. It's almost like a vetting process. You got to be around him for a long, long time. Anthony Goldwire probably has been around Sampson less time, but they met as assistants. Both of them were assistants back with the Milwaukee Bucks after the Indiana thing didn't work out for very long, right? Bilal Bately, director of program strategy here, was a GA at Indiana when Sampson was at Indiana, right? And you look at all these guys across, like Lauren Sampson's daughter, right? All these guys, all these different stops, have some time from a historical point of Kelvin's life to get to this point with him now. And Ryan Elvin joins the crew. Ryan Elvin joins as a GA, and he's going to be another one of these guys where Sampson is hiring his guys. Ryan will forever be one of Sampson's guys. And I think it's cool because, frankly, a lot of great coaches on this staff in various roles. Ryan joins pretty elite company in that. But it's like in this iteration where Houston's like a nationally known power, right? Houston's nationally recognized as being a good basketball program again. For the first, the last 6-7 years, it's kind of the first time we've had that since Phi Slama, right? For certainly the first time we've had it for a stretch or a run like that. And it looks like it's going to continue to go on and on and on. Ryan is the first to join this coaching tree from that run, right? Galen is still playing. Corey's in Europe. I believe I saw Fabian's in Europe. A handful of guys from the last handful of teams are spread out. Tajay Morris dunking on Joel Embiid or whoever that was. It Rudy Gobert, whoever. That man has a family, Tajay. But those guys are all still playing. Ryan doesn't have those options. So he's into this tree of coaching very, very quickly. Could Galen have gotten a coaching job? I'm sure, but he had playing left to do, right? Could Marcus have gotten a coach? Yeah, but Marcus had playing left to do. Same with Quentin and so on, right? Josh Carlton. Instead, with Ryan doesn't have those, he's fast-tracked into this world where he's one of Kelvin's guys that will be on a Kelvin staff and have a spot on a Kelvin or a Kellen staff, because I'm sure Kellen will continue to do things fairly similarly for a long, long time. And I think that's really cool to see happen in Lifetime. I was really excited to see that happen in Lifetime. For Ryan, now, we talked about a lot today. If you got questions, comments, concerns, thoughts on the transfer portal, thoughts on Ryan, thoughts on Mikal Harrison-Pilot, thoughts on whomever, tell me in the comments down below. We're going to keep tackling the news each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, our Houston Cougars, each and every day. Go Cougs.